everybody? Mike B here with Balmero Bus. Pretty excited today because I got something in the mail that I ordered about a week ago. It's for Roxanne, and it is the alternator. We're going to be putting this in today, and something I've never done before. I've messed with her alternator a lot, and specifically the pulley around it. But you know, just holding this, that weighs a little bit more than I thought. You can really get a feel for the weight that's on top of that alternator stand in the back of the bus. Well, I'm pretty excited about it because the old alternator is working fine as far as charging, but there are some other things wrong with it that, you know, cost me some troubles pretty regular. So the solution was to just, for me, change the whole alternator, and I'm going to keep that one as a spare. You never know, especially in the Volkswagen world. So let's get to it. All right, if you saw the video about the pulley plague I was having, this bottom one, since then, I have had no problems. The tension has been staying good. No flipping belts or throwing belts. This pulley has worked like a charm. The problem now is up here. This one, if you can see this black residue, every time I run the bus, I get some of that black residue back there. And what I think it is, even though this belt is lasting and performing just fine, is particles of that are, see there, being worn off and just sent all around in the engine bay, but in this area in particular. Either way, I'm not 100% sure about that alignment. And also, from the top pulley to the bottom, if you look here, I've heard of it happening before, but this is a normal size pulley, and it's grinding. It was until I shimmed it into the alternator. When I pulled the pulley off, there was no spacer back there. As should be. I had to put one, but the damage was already done. I heard a scraping noise and looked back here, and lo and behold, it was even throwing some sparks there. So I had to space it out. Also, when I pull it out, I'll show you the Woodruff Key where it sits behind this pulley has been just widened beyond use. So even if I put a new Woodruff Key in there, the Woodruff Key turns on its side, and there's some delay when you turn this motor over. There's some delay right there that just makes it worse every time I start it up. It's hard to explain, but when I pull this off, I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm ready to just put the new alternator in, keep this one as a spare, and we'll show you what I'm talking about when I pull that off. And to pull it off, here's what I think needs to happen first. Like I said, I've never done this before, done a lot of work on the bus, but haven't got to this. So any tips or comments from some veterans or just anybody who knows is always appreciated. But what I think is this hex bar or this crossbar that connects the down rods to my dual carbs is going to have to come off, because you can see it's definitely in the way of this plate that will have to come out of the fan shroud. So that's going to be the first step. And going to go ahead and mention that I've disconnected the ground wire. There, we've taken the hex bar off. It's not going to be in the way when we go to pull the alternator. My first thoughts were, there's a large 36 millimeter nut back there that holds the fan to this alternator on the back side of the shroud. I was thinking if I could get that off, that 36 millimeter nut, I would leave the fan in there, pull this alternator, and you don't have to pull the alternator stand. But limited room here, and the bus just can't get the leverage I need. And I thought, well, that's what I got this for anyway, this deflector plate. It goes right there underneath the alternator stand and between there and the case. So I'm just gonna pull the alternator stand off, take the whole fan out with it, and gonna look at my old deflector plate. If it looks good and it's in the right position, I might save this for later, but I think I'm gonna put this one in anyway. If you don't know, it's supposed to go with these vents. See the raised part? They actually go down, and this should read C, 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 like that. So you don't want it like that or like that. You want it to say C, C, C with the raised area facing down. But the point of it all is, I'm not going to show you how to take this linkage off. There's other videos on that. I'm going to try to keep this focused on just the alternator. So while I'm here, in case you haven't noticed yet, I don't have the normal domed washer here. I have a series of spacers that I've had to use and stack to a very particular height to keep this lined up. That's one of the things I hope to fix when we put this new one in. And I didn't mention it earlier, but this was stripped. When I talked about cheap chrome parts, that's what was on there, was the empty chrome piece. And as many times as I had to pull this pulley off to tighten this belt and just to mess with it, this finally got stripped, and I actually had to re-thread it to a new size. So that's just another part of the reason that I'm going to put the new alternator on. But I just wanted to update you with how I'm going to take it off. The fan is actually going to come out with it, and the stand has to come off. So that's what we're doing now. This is what I was talking about earlier when I mentioned the Woodruff Key. The little slot that it fits in, if you look right there at how wide that is, and just way too big for a Woodruff Key to fit in. It's been whittled away, and what happens is this. This is the old Woodruff Key, which was brand new not too long ago, a couple months ago when I did that video on the pulley. And look how just worn and damaged it is already. Here's what a new one should look like. That's how bad it got chewed down. And if you look at the new alternator, you look at the slot for that Woodruff Key, and you see how precise it is. That's what another reason I went ahead and got a new alternator. I don't want any play between the key when it's sitting in that galley. Alternator is out. You can see that we had to raise this shroud up. See the gap there? What happened is, like we said, the alternator with the fan attached can't come far enough forward to be pulled out because the alternator stand is in the way. So we got it off, laid it off to the side, and pulled out the alternator with the fan attached. And guess what we saw? There it is. Remember that deflector I was telling you about? Good thing. This one still looks good, but at least I got some new gaskets. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay. Part of it is right. See the raised part? It was facing downward. But this should be like that. C, C, C. And as you could see, it was like this. But there it is, the alternator's out. You can see it's still got the fan attached to it. This is the big 36 millimeter nut I was talking about. If you're able to reach back there on yours and get this nut off, then this fan will stay in the shroud and you can pull just the alternator out. And the bus, I couldn't get the leverage on it. Plus, I wanted to pull the alternator stand anyway. So, alternator's out. We'll get back when we're putting the new one in. And if you pull it out whole with the fan attached to the alternator the way we did, you're really going to have a problem getting this nut off of here, because when it's in place, the alternator, you don't have any movement. You don't have any movement there. You can put your screwdriver inside the pulley and you're able to get this off. With us, what we had on hand was to just put that in the vice grip, and we still couldn't do it with a ratchet without that wanting to spin. So we ended up putting the impact on there and that got it loose. But that's something you'll have to be concerned about if you pull yours alternator out with the fan still. All right, so it didn't want to all go together in one piece. Here it is in the 3 different pieces that we were talking about. So I'm just going to do it this way. Here's the first one. Second ring. The last piece, there's the channel facing up with the post. Okay, once those 10mm are snug, make sure we talk about the orientation again. This is the post, it's the top. This channel should be pointing up. What that leaves is the breather, the vent pointing down. So this is the way it goes into the bus. Next step is to get this little hub piece on. You can see we already have our Woodruff key in the keyway. So you see this side with the flat corners, it's gonna have to go through the fan. So it only makes sense. This side, circle side, goes towards the alternator, and we're gonna slide it on over the keyway. All right. Ours had 1 shim on it. I didn't feel any rubbing or have any problems with that, so I'm going to put it back together with 1 shim. But if you ever felt some rubbing in your fan shroud and you thought it might be touching, this is what you would want to investigate. You might need to space this more or less according to where your fan is touching the housing. Ours had 1, it was working fine, so we're going to put it back with 1. You're going to have a spring washer. Goes there. See the side with the recess? Goes in there. Now that's not torqued down yet, but we want to test it. It's relatively straight. You can see here on the sides, it's not touching anywhere. The other one actually had a little bit of a closer gap, so I feel better about this one. You saw it spinning freely and pretty straight in the back there. We've got the pulley on the front now, the front half of it. What we're going to do next is get back to this alternator stand, and I'm going to put gaskets and my deflector plate that we showed you on there. There it is, the alternator's in. Let's cruise up and take a listen. See how smooth that pulley's running? The alternator pulley. notice the bell washer, the proper bell washer on there. Well, in case you can't tell, I'm very happy with that. I'm gonna call it a win. I know there was a gap in the footage, but honestly what happened is getting the alternator back into the housing while trying to place the alternator stand underneath it while dealing with this hex bar. It took 2 hands and we just got rolling. It took 4 hands actually. So me and my brother just got rolling on it and we decided to finish it up. But I think I've talked about some the nuances, enough to help you out, and the rest should be self-explanatory. The advantages here that I'm really proud of is, if you notice earlier, I told you that alternator was getting scraped by the pulley. Look at that nice gap there now, just how it's supposed to be. I'm able to use the bell washer now. I got the happens to be 9 spacers in there right now. Just ran it. The belt tension stayed good, and but there's no residue on the pulley. I just wiped it down and there was nothing on the rag. So this was probably my favorite thing of all. I didn't have to be very particular about putting this on because it was a 3 re-threaded stud, so that went right on, and I'm very happy about it. So we're going to take it for a test run and see how it goes. All right, it's done. It's the next day. Been on several test runs and the alternator's doing great. The belt is holding up fine without any residue being pulled off of it inside the compartment, staying nice and clean. If this video helped you, please feel free to like and subscribe. If not, leave some tips or comments so that we can continue to learn. And of course, thanks for watching.